Hi, I'm Deja Sanford, Bell Media Group. Today I'm here with Dr. Sharelle Barber. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Deja?
I am doing well. And today I know that you're on our campus for a very special reason.
Yes.
And that reason being the new documentary coming out. Could you give me more information about your documentary?
Yeah, so this documentary, I, A Black Woman Resist, is a documentary that I've been working on with Free Southern Media, which is an independent film collective based here in North Carolina. It was birthed out of an experience I had in Brazil back in March of 2018, where I met Afro-Brazilian activist and politician Marielle Franco.
Yes.
And so Marielle was an Afro-Brazilian politician and human rights activist who spoke out against police brutality, who stood up against racism in Brazil. And on March 14th, 2018, she was actually assassinated. And I met her just hours before this happened at a gathering called Young Black Women Moving Power Structures, which was held in downtown Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And so prior to her being assassinated, being killed, the gathering had been just such a powerful event of Black women, of her, but other Black women. It was really a roundtable discussion. I was the only Black woman from the US present at that event, but really felt at home in that space. Met some other Black women, spoke with them about the work they're doing on the ground, activism, and then at the end had the opportunity to meet Marielle personally. And our interaction was so powerful. And you could tell just by how she interacted, not only with me, but the other Black women there, that she was just such a powerful force in Brazil, in Rio. And she was using her voice and her platform as a local city councilor to really amplify the voices of marginalized communities, so Blacks, women, LGBTQ community. And so was there that night, made some remarks, told the women that night that I'm going to take this story of this night back with me to the United States. And 2 hours later, less than 2 hours later, I left the event. She left going home with her driver. She was gunned down in downtown Rio. 4 bullets to the head, and many attribute this to some political motivations and that potentially the police or the militia were involved in the assassination. So you can imagine that after being on such a high at this event with these Black women, with her, meeting her, that tragedy really shook me to the core. I can't describe it. There were so many emotions that went through me that night. I was scared, I was sad, I was also angry. Because it just was, to me, just this blow in this vicious way in which oftentimes Black women are silenced. And so over the last 7 months, it's been 7 months now, I've just been like, why was I in that room? Only Black woman from the US in this room of Black women from Brazil with this powerful Black woman. Why was I there? What was my purpose there? And part of that purpose, I feel like, is to tell the story, tell Marielle's story, tell the story of that night, how powerful it was, but also tell the story of how in the wake of her assassination, Black women in Brazil are rising.
And how are these women rising? How did they take her assassination and put it in their own lives?
Right.
I know you were a Black African-American woman in Brazil, but there are also women that were native to Brazil that followed her teachings as well. And so, how do you think that impacted their lives?
I mean, I saw it the very next day, in fact,
Really?
right? So there was a huge vigil in downtown Rio. Thousands of people protested, but one of the major groups of folks were Black women. And Black women who I actually was in the room with the night before. And so it was the very next day, were saying Marielle presente. In Portuguese, that means Marielle is here. So they were already declaring that, you all tried to kill her, you all tried to assassinate her, you tried to silence her voice, but she is here through us, and we're going to take up that mantle and carry it forward. So the very next day, I saw how they were responding. In the months, because I have colleagues there, I follow several folks on social media. One of the other most immediate things that they did is they Black women decided we're going to run for public office.
Wow.
So there's been Black women in Brazil in unprecedented numbers running for local office, running for state office, running for federal office. And a lot of them attribute their running for office to Marielle's assassination. And people are calling it the seeds of Marielle, right? Or the Marielle effect, where you're seeing this intensified engagement of Black women in the political process in Brazil. And it's kind of parallel to what's happening here in the US, right? We see, you see Stacey Abrams down in Georgia, right? We saw Ayanna Pressley up in Boston, Massachusetts. We're seeing women of color all over the United States, in this time where there's so much viciousness in politics, where our issues are being neglected. We're going to stand, we're going to have a seat at the table, we're going to run for public office. And I feel like there are parallel things happening in the context of the Brazil and the United States. And so that's, those two things are some of the more immediate responses Black women especially are having in Brazil, that they're going to, rise and take her place. And that's been inspiring. Now do we deny the viciousness, the hurt that is felt by her absence? No, but we have to point to the power how powerful she was, that she would inspire such energy, such resistance, even in her death. And what we hope to capture with this, what we're calling a living documentary project, is to tell that story and to showcase that resistance that's continuing on.
So tonight, the film. When will the film debut tonight?
So this is the screening of and we're saying the first iteration, because we're filming while we're here at Bennett.
Okay.
And what we're hoping to do is the footage that we get at our screening. So we have the first one is here. Okay. Tomorrow we'll be at Duke at the Center for Documentary Studies. On Tuesday there'll be a screening at UNC in the Stone Center. And we're going to be going. Howard has invited us to screen. Wow. Spelman has invited us to screen. We're going to do a screening in Philadelphia, hopefully later this fall or early in the spring. And we're going to document us telling this story. The other piece of this project that's really powerful is that I very deliberately chose to include Black women. So my co-director is a Black woman whose father is from Peru, whose mother is from Alabama. Our editor is a Black woman who went to North Carolina Central with my sister. Our impact producer is Azaree. She's a Bennett Bell. So we've included, in the making of this project, we've included Black women as a way of also honoring Marielle's legacy.
Which is absolutely wonderful. Although, everyone's Black women and Black men, people are going to see this documentary. What is something that you want them, the most important thing you want from them to take from Marielle's work? Yeah,
well, I want them just to see how powerful she was as a woman, and how she tapped into the divine that is in all of us and used it for the betterment of her community, but for Brazil as a whole. Her campaign slogan was a Ubuntu principle, "Eu sou porque nós somos." I am because we are, right? So the way she did her politics, the way she worked, was seeing us all, seeing the humanity in everyone. And in this time where our politics are so divisive, right? In the United States and around the world, we're othering everyone. It's like, if you don't recognize the humanity that is in me, then your humanity is questionable, right? And so really wanting to amplify that part of her story, and how she stood strong. Even as she saw that humanity, she stood strong against racism, against economic exploitation, against police brutality, right? Because at its core, when we allow our systems and societies allow those things to happen, we're denying people their humanity. And so she came from this strong, courageous place of compassion. And that's what real compassion, I think, really looks like.
Honestly, I'm trying to hold back tears, but that is very moving, and it's very touching. And as a Black woman, and a Black woman that attends Bennett College, I look at my sisters every day to hope, to strive, and have that confidence and that drive that she had, that she gave to her community. And I feel like that's what we try to represent here.
Yeah, and that's why I had to screen it first at Bennett.
Yes,
right.
She is an
alum. I'm a Bennett alum.
Yes, ma'am.
I found my voice here.
Yes.
Bennett was what I call a Black women's sacred space, and that night I was in this Black women's sacred space. I did my interview actually in the chapel for the documentary, but we had to bring this story first to Bennett. And to tell this story and screen this first iteration of the documentary here at Bennett as a representation of what the power and the strength and the courage of Black women.
So, what were you like here at Bennett?
What was I like? I mean, I came to Bennett as a biology major, but I remember stepping on Bennett's campus literally 15 years ago as a freshwoman.
Freshwoman, yes.
And I knew this is where I was supposed to be. There was just this feeling, right? That the sense of this is where I am supposed to be. And my first year was really kind of concentrated on my work. So I'm a biology major. I'm now a social epidemiologist. I do work in public health. So it was really focused. But in my second year, really began to get involved. It was the 2004 elections where Bush and Kerry were running for presidential office. And I was like, we've got to do something in terms of voting and making sure not just that we vote on campus, but that we vote, that we're educated and we're empowered, and we're doing this as a part of our larger civic engagement, right? So being active, involved in the community and the politics, like I thought that was really important. So Dr. Alma Adams was a professor here at Bennett, and she had this slogan, Bennett bells are voting bells. So you all know that.
That's fine.
So I partnered with Dr. Adams and student government, and we did our march to the polls, 2004.
So let me clarify, that was the very first.
That was the first march to the polls.
The same march to the polls that we do today.
Religiously.
Yes.
And it has touched my heart to know that Bennett, students carry on that tradition.
Of course.
So we marched to the polls. Dr. Janetta Cole was our president at the time. She supported the march. She also invited Reverend Jesse Jackson to do a rally like a couple of days before the march, and then we marched to the polls in 2004. Now that was a little bit of nudging from my father, who is an activist in his own right, but it's really one of the ways where I first began to engage. And then I got into student government. I was SGA president my senior year, and really challenged students on campus. And one of our pieces of our platform was getting more civically engaged. I also, as a Bennett student, had my first experience in Brazil, and I attended the World Social Forum in Porto Alegre, Brazil, back in 2005. And it was a group of students from all over the United States, all over Brazil, and all over the world. So about 60 students. I was 20 years old, and we gathered talking about social justice and talking about the global implications of social justice, and how in our own communities, some of the work people are doing all over the world are very similar, and how we can stand in solidarity with one another.
And this was through a study abroad program?
It was actually through the United Methodist Church, because Bennett has that affiliation, and our chaplain, Reverend McLean, nominated me to go. And that's actually that was my first introduction to Brazil, and the fact that there were people of color, Black people in Brazil.
So your calling for Brazil started a long time ago.
Started 2005, 13 years ago. And this work in Brazil has been really a full circle moment. Yeah. So that night, March 14, 2018, made everything before that time make sense.
Wow.
Because it was like that initial, here at Bennett, where I got the initial seed to begin looking at Brazil, to begin thinking about Brazil. 13 years later, I come back to this moment with these Black women, with that Black woman, Marielle Franco. And it made that event in 2005 make sense. And it really is like, this is part of my calling, this is part of my purpose. And that's what a place like Bennett does, right? Yes. It shapes you and it molds you and it sends you on the direction where you begin to really walk in not only what's your career, but what's your calling, what's your purpose.
Young lady, what is your purpose?
Yes.
That is, we don't take shortcuts in life.
Not at all.
That's why we don't step foot on the grass.
Yeah. And I was also valedictorian, and my speech was, what is your purpose?
Right.
To Bennett Bells. So yeah.
Speaking of the March to the Polls, my very first one, my freshwoman year, I met your father, Dr. William Barbour, Reverend Dr. William Barbour, and he was just as driven, and I know that he's an activist all over Greensboro, North Carolina.
Well, he's really nationally and now internationally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Taking off. So yes, now that your father is how long has he been in the political?
I mean, he was SGA president when he was at Central, so this has been a long time coming for him too. But in the last couple of years, when he started Moral Mondays, was really when he began to get national prominence and national acclaim for the work he's doing.
So that sounds like pretty big shoes to fill. You know, your dad being an activist, and then how did that make way for you? Like, how did you see yourself moving from I'm the daughter of I'm the daughter of Reverend Barber, and now I'm Dr. Barber.
Right,
so how did you move that?
Yeah, so there are 5 of us. There are 5 of us. I'm the oldest, but we've all had to answer that question for ourselves. My brothers and my sister. You know, how do we, one, carry on the legacy, but also have our own identity in the work that we do? And so I think I draw on inspiration from my father, but have this this international space, my space in public health, where I very explicitly look at racism and health inequalities, has been a space that I've been able to carve out. And it's been taking the lessons you see growing up and then trying to utilize them in the spaces where you're brought to, right? And so I feel like we all have paths that take us to specific places that present us with certain moments, and we make decisions about how we act in those moments.
Right.
And I think all of us, myself, my sister, my brothers, have in our own ways taken the moments we've been given and tried to really do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly before God. That's one of the scriptures that really drives, I think, all of our works respectively. And I didn't see it as, it's been, like I said, it's just been our own personal journey. And one of the things that I appreciate about not only our father, but also our mother, is that they gave us this room to grow and to find who we are in our own way. And it's never been this, you have to do this or you have to do it this way. It's been all of us trying to tap into really, at the core, just trying to make this world a better place, a more just place, to speak truth to power. And we've just been able to find that in our own way. I do it through both my scholarship and now through this work of amplifying Marielle's story. And my siblings have found ways to do it in their own way. And it's been powerful to watch and to see.
And then your parents, how's the support life with your parents? Like, you taking on the role of Marielle, not taking on the role of Marielle, but of her work.
Yeah. Well, I'm just telling the story. I really see myself as telling the story. I happen to be in that moment. I happen to be in that space. And right now I'm telling the story.
Yes.
Because what she was doing, was just so powerful and just really telling. And they've been supportive. My siblings are going to be at the screening tonight. If my dad could have been here, he would have. But of course, he's all over the place. And my mother as well. She just has to work tonight, but that we're all supportive of everyone's work, and so we try to lift up and amplify each other, and that's been really powerful to have a family that gets it and that really supports each other in this work.
Thank you, Dr. Barber, for joining us today and giving us
Deja.
your story. So how do your viewers, after today, follow up with this documentary and this project?
Yeah. So like I said, this is a living documentary project. So we're not releasing the full final version online, or we're doing these private screenings because we want to be able to control the conversation. There's a lot of context behind what happened in Brazil. And so we're doing it as a screening dialogue series. And so like I said, we're doing doing here at Bennett as the first one. We'll do Duke tomorrow, and then UNC on October the 23rd. And we're scheduling screenings to be able to have not only the screening of the 25-minute documentary, but dialogue around how this is important for a U.S.-based context and the ways in which we can stand in solidarity. And so in order to follow that, we've created social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram. The handles for both Twitter and Instagram are Marielle Resists with an S on the end. You can stay updated on future screenings. We're also sending out information about things that are happening in Brazil. The content material that's in English, we're trying to pump that out. And so already on our Twitter page, we launched it at the 200-day mark of the assassination on September the 29th. It was a Sunday, September the 30th. And what we've done is we've shared stories about, for example, the Black women who are resisting, who ran for public office. We'll continue to share updates about the investigation that is ongoing, and also offer ways to stand in solidarity. So that's where people can become more engaged. Again, that's at Marielle Resists. because she is still resisting in her own way, even since her death.
And we will put the handles for both social media sites on here. Is there a website or anything?
We're working on a website. We did a lot
so
in 7 months. We did a lot in 7 months. But the website will be on the way, and we'll post that on social media as well.
All right. And we, as Bennett Bells, will stay in touch, and we will keep this movement alive on this campus.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.